आमर परम सौभाग्य आज आम पाखरे अछंती आम समस्तंकर प्रिय स्वामी सर्वप्रियानंद जी। प्रणाम स्वामी जी। स्वामी जी आगु आमको तांकर मूल्यवान समय देइछंती, किंतु आउ थरे ओसा परिवार को एवं आजिर सभा को स्वामी जी को स्वागत करबा पई मु वर्तमान अनुरोध करूची ओसार सभापति श्रीजुक्त ज्ञान पटनायक को। समस्त को आउ थरे स्वागत। धन्यवाद।
कुकु सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। समस्त की नमस्कार। ओडिशा सोसाइटी ऑफ अमेरिका तरफ वेदांत सोसाइटी न्यूयॉर्क मुख्य पूज्य स्वामी सर्वप्रियानंद को स्वागत करुछि आजिर ए आध्यात्मिक समारोह। वरेण्य स्वामी जी 1994 मसीह रामकृष्ण मिशन सहित संपृक्त 2004 मसीह से संन्यास नहीं बेलूर मठ कैलिफोर्निया एवं वेदांत सोसाइटी न्यूयॉर्क विभिन्न कार्यक्रम रे बेस ओतप्रोत भाव में जड़ित। स्वामी जी विषय कहवा मो पक्ष एक बाहुल्य मात्र हम जे आपण माने जो माने जानती रामकृष्ण मिशन एक्टिविटी और वेदांत सोसाइटी जदि यूट्यूब सर्च करिवे देखिवे जे भगवत गीता व अन्य विभिन्न टॉपिक ऊपर जोटा कि आम जीवन को परिवर्तन करिवो संपूर्ण भाव में ता भितर स्वामी जी बहुत किछि रहिछि व्याख्या। स्वामी जी तांकर बाल्यकाल भुवनेश्वर रे कटैछंती एवं स्वामी जी एजुकेशन मध्य जावियर इंस्टीट्यूट मैनेजमेंट रु एमबीए डिग्री नहीं। आज स्वामी जी आमे बहुत ओडिशा सोसाइटी बहुत भाग्यवान और आमे मध्य बहुत कृतज्ञ जे स्वामी जी जो विषय वस्तु आमको आज कहिबे जे मु किए तारी उपरे जो व्याख्या करिवे एटा होछि अति डीप बहुत प्रगाढ़। आमे जदि मन देकरी स्वामी जी वक्तव्य सुनिबा ताले निश्चय आम जीवन प्रति या बहुत परिवर्तन आनिबो। स्वामी जी वक्तव्य आरंभ करने पूर्व मु आमर कार्यक्रम जने मुख्य स्वेच्छासेवी बंधु श्री मनोज साहू को अनुरोध करी आज कार्यक्रम परिचालना विषय रे संक्षेप रे किछि टिप्पणी देवे। मनोज।
हरिओम। धन्यवाद ज्ञान। पूज्य स्वामी जी को सादर प्रणाम। उपस्थित समस्त सुधीवृंद को यह आध्यात्मिक पाठचक्र बा सत्संग को स्वागत। ज्ञान कहवा हिसाब से आज प्रसंग है हु एम आई एन इंट्रोडक्शन टू अद्वैत वेदांत। यही संदर्भ में स्वामी जी आज आम मान आत्मज्ञान तथा अद्वैत वेदांत विषय रे किछि कहिबे। तेबे प्रवचन आरंभ हवा आगुरु मु किछिटा हाउसकीपिंग रूल कहि रखे। स्वामी जी वक्तव्य मध्य कौन सी प्रश्न न पचारिबाकू आपण मानकु सविनय अनुरोध। दयापूर्वक समस्त प्रश्न चैट बॉक्स रे टाइप करंतु। स्वामी जी वक्तव्यर परिसमाप्ति परे आमे आपण मानकर प्रश्न क्वेश्चन एंड आंसर सेशन रे स्वामी जी सामने रे उपस्थापन करिवु। आपण मानकर माइक्रोफोन को म्यूट कर दिया जाइछि, किंतु आपण माने वेबकैम ऑन करने को वीडियो कैमरा ऑन रखा बहुत अनुरोध। धन्यवाद स्वामी जी।
Am I audible to everybody?
Yes,
right.
Sir.
I would like to say that mu bahut kritagya to OSA and all the office holders, Gyana Patnaik ji, Srimati Kukudas, Manoj Babu and others for organizing this and inviting me. It's especially close to my heart, especially Odia community, jo jagah mein mile, we all feel this closeness and kind of joy, and it brings back memories of Bhubaneswar, Cuttack, Puri and my childhood there. Jimte se kahle ମୁଁ ପଢାପଢି କରିଛି ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରରେ, not only Xavier Institute but ତା ଆଗରୁ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରରେ BJP କଲେଜରେ I got my degree in economics. ତା ଆଗରୁ ସେ ରିଜନାଲ କଲେଜରେ ଯୋଉ ଅବିକା ତାକୁ କଣ କୁହାଯାଏ, ନ୍ୟାସନାଲ ଇନଷ୍ଟିଚ୍ୟୁଟ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଏଡୁକେସନ କୁହାଯାଏ ତାକୁ, ସେଇଠି ଯୋଉ ଡିଏମ ସ୍କୁଲ ଅଛି ସେଇଠି ମୁଁ ସ୍କୁଲରେ ପଢିଛି. So from class 3 onwards, standard 3 onwards up to my post graduation, I was in Bhubaneswar. I'll keep this talk in English. Thank you. I did not know what you were expecting, maybe in Oriya, but whatever mental mode hai English, I was ready to speak in English, so I'll speak in English, and it's also being live streamed on YouTube. So there may be a lot of non-Oriyas also who will be listening to this now and in the future. So let's keep this talk in English. That among the community, people are always eager to hear it in Oriya. But one thing you may or may not know, your children who have grown up here, they are reluctant. You have to push them to speak in Oriya and listen to talks in Oriya. They always prefer, like children of all communities here, all Indian communities, they are more comfortable, I think, in English than in their mother tongue. All right. So for these reasons, I'll keep it in English, at least for this session, today's session. Let me start. Om Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityurma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. The subject, as was mentioned, who am I? An introduction to Advaita Vedanta. And as it was mentioned, that it is a very profound subject. In fact, it is the profoundest possible subject, the most ancient subjects, the most profound of all subjects. There's a recent book, Waking, Dreaming, Being, by Professor Evan Thompson of the University of British Columbia, where he says, consciousness studies, the book is about consciousness studies, and he says that consciousness studies is not a new phenomenon. It is, in fact, a very ancient field of study, and it started with the Upanishads. So, and he says these Upanishads are such profound texts that we should date our history not with AD and BC, but with before Upanishad and after Upanishad. They are so profound. So this subject today is about the highest philosophy, the highest spirituality, the most profound subject that we can talk about, our real nature, the ultimate reality. In our traditional shastras, the method is always to start with the end in view. Why are we studying this? Why are we interested in this? What will I get out of this? A very pragmatic approach. In our shastras, this is called prayojanam. What is the purpose of our study? What is the purpose of our inquiry? What am I going to get out of it? And the answer in Vedanta is, we should start with that, is what we are looking for. Atyantika dukkha nivritti paramananda praptischa. Complete cessation, overcoming of suffering, and attainment of fulfillment, attainment of bliss. You see, this is not something limited to a few monks or few sadhakas, a few scholars. It is the quest of our lives. All of us, whoever we are, wherever we are, what is it that we are trying to do? Whether we admit it or not, whether we realize it or not, we are trying to find deep and lasting satisfaction, fulfillment, happiness, and we are struggling to overcome sorrow, suffering. The great project of the Buddha. Why did Siddhartha become the Buddha? In his quest to find out whether there is any solution for the universal problem of suffering, of dukkha. And he found it out. We know dukkha, and there is a cause of dukkha, and there is a solution to dukkha, nirvana, and there is a method for reaching that solution, the Ashtanga Marga of the Buddha. So this is the prayojanam, the result which we are seeking, that we want deep, lasting fulfillment, happiness. Is it at all possible? One answer is, it's not possible. This life is a mixture of happiness and sorrow, a lot of pain, little bit of pleasure, and this is how it will go on, and one day it will end. That's the end of it. That is also a philosophy. You cannot escape from philosophy. That is also a philosophy. That is the so-called Charvaka philosophy, a grossly materialistic philosophy. But in one voice, the various diverse streams of Indian thought, whether Buddhist or Jaina or the various Hindu philosophies, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Purva Mimamsa, Vedanta, all of them, they answer in one voice that it is possible to overcome sorrow. It is possible to find deep, lasting satisfaction. In fact, the indologist Heinrich Zimmer, he says, at the bottom, the philosophies of India are deeply optimistic. They are not pessimistic, though they talk about human suffering and sorrow, the human condition, but they say that the solution is possible, that there is a way to rise out of our present state of misery and incompleteness and unhappiness. So they are fundamentally, the thought of India is fundamentally optimistic. And there is a proof of this. Is it that we can overcome suffering? Is there any proof? Are there people who have overcome suffering at the deepest possible level? Have they found lasting satisfaction and bliss? Yes. In the lives of the saints and sages throughout history, all through Indian history for the last 5,000 years, one thing common you will see, whether they are Hindu sages, men or women, whether they are bhakti saints or jnanis or yogis, whether they are Buddhist monk bhikshus or Jaina munis, or whichever tradition they belong to, when they advance far enough, one thing common to them is they feel that they have overcome suffering. They feel it is very deeply meaningful, worthwhile. They have found something which is very, very precious. And not just in India, in all the religions, in all spiritual traditions across the world, that proof is the great ones which these traditions have produced. So it is possible. So that is the prayojanam. Atyantika dukkha nivritti paramananda praptischa. Now, before we get into this particular tradition, Advaita Vedanta, and why Advaita Vedanta? Not only Radhakrishnan called it the fairest flower, the final fruit of Indian philosophy, but also it is my home tradition. That is the fundamental tradition of the Ramakrishna order, Ramakrishna Math and Mission. And by the way, today we are close actually to Swami Vivekananda's birthday. 12th January, National Youth Day is Swami Vivekananda's birthday. So it is an auspicious occasion also. Advaita Vedanta, when we talk about Advaita Vedanta, what exactly do we mean? What is Advaita Vedanta? One way of understanding this is to look at the textual basis of Advaita Vedanta. When you want to define Vedanta or understand what is Vedanta, what do you mean? We mean a certain body of texts. One definition we had to memorize when we were students, brahmacharis in Belur Math, definition of Advaita Vedanta. Vedanta nama Upanishad Pramanam. Vedanta nama Upanishad Pramanam. What is Vedanta? It is the source of spiritual knowledge called Upanishads. So the body of texts called Upanishads is itself Vedanta. Literally, you can say Upanishad is equal to Vedanta. And of course, a variety of texts which are based on the Upanishads. Later on, Bhagavad Gita. Upanishads, many people may not know about, may not even study, but Bhagavad Gita is commonly known. In fact, if you say one text which is representative of Hinduism, it would be the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a text of Vedanta. Sri Krishna has basically taken the teachings of the Upanishads and he has put it in a practical way to his student Arjuna. Then there is one more text which is highly philosophical and subtle and therefore not very well known in the public domain, the Brahma Sutras. So various philosophical issues which arise from the Upanishads, they are dealt with, questions are answered, problems are solved in those that series of aphorisms called the Brahma Sutras. Now, these three texts, the body of texts called Upanishads, the text called Bhagavad Gita, and the text called Brahma Sutras, these three are the triple foundation of Vedanta. They are called Prasthanatrayi, the triple foundation of Vedanta. So when you say Vedanta, a comprehensive basis would be Upanishads plus Brahma Sutras plus Bhagavad Gita. Upanishads are known as Shruti Prasthana, the Gita is known as the Smriti Prasthana, and the Brahma Sutras are known as Nyaya Prasthana. So Prasthanatrayi. But of course, it goes much further than that. These Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutras, these have been commented upon. Erudite commentaries have been written by great masters over the centuries, over a millennia. So Adi Shankaracharya is the most well-known and one of the earliest of these commentators. So when he writes commentaries on Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutras, he gives a particular interpretation to them. And this interpretation is called Advaita Vedanta. So we are in the realm of Vedanta now. Vedanta is Upanishads and Brahma Sutra and Bhagavad Gita. But the interpretations are many. So there are many Vedantas, let us say. So the interpretation given by Adi Shankaracharya is the Advaita Vedanta, which we are going to talk about. But there are others also. We must acknowledge Sri Ramanujacharya, whose commentaries form the foundation of Vishishtadvaita Vedanta. Sri Madhvacharya, whose commentaries are the basis of Dvaita Vedanta. Similarly, there is Vallabhacharya's Shuddhadvaita Vedanta. There is Nimbarkacharya's Dvaitadvaita Vedanta. There is our very own Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Achintya Bheda Bheda. So multiple schools of Vedanta are there, depending on the commentaries which have been written. One clarification here, it is not that Adi Shankaracharya is the founder of Advaita Vedanta. It is not that Ramanujacharya is the founder of Vishishtadvaita Vedanta. If you go to those traditions, they will tell you that these traditions are much more ancient than, say, Shankaracharya or Ramanujacharya. Shankaracharya himself, he learnt Advaita Vedanta from his guru Govindapada, who got it from his guru Gaudapada. So it clearly shows a line of teachers extending even before Shankaracharya. But yes, the crucial role of these commentators must be acknowledged. Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vallabhacharya, Nimbarkacharya, and so on. Now, after Shankaracharya not only wrote commentaries on Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutras, but also numerous smaller texts called prakaranas, introductory texts. So well known, for example, Vivek Chudamani, for example. There is some doubt among scholars whether it is written by the Adi Shankaracharya or some later Shankaracharya, but anyway, it's an important text of the tradition. There is Atma Bodha, there is Upadesha Sahasri, there is your Drigdrishya Viveka, Panchadashi. These are all written much after Shankaracharya. Vedanta Sara, and so many books coming down to almost our present age, 17th and the 18th century, after which some books have been written in vernacular languages also. So vast mass of literature is there in all of these Vedanta traditions, and especially Advaita Vedanta tradition. Huge amount of literature, mostly in Sanskrit and some later in vernacular languages and in English also. When talking about Vivekananda, most of his lectures are in English, and they were given here in New York, they were given in London, and they also form the mass of a part of the what we might call the greater Advaita literature, the extended literature of Advaita Vedanta. And many great teachers, philosophers in 20th century also have written and commented upon the Gita and Upanishads. Dr. Radhakrishnan is there. And, there is the new commentary on Bhagavad Gita by Tilak, and so on. What do they say? what does it all mean? The entire vast literature, what is the teaching? The teaching, luckily, such a vast literature, but it can be put in a single sentence. A very famous sentence by Adi Shankaracharya, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. Now we are firmly in the tradition of Advaita Vedanta. We are located in Advaita Vedanta now. What is the teaching of Advaita Vedanta? There is one absolute reality. This world, it seems to be multifarious, it seems to be diverse, but underlying this diversity, in and through this diversity, is a oneness. And this Brahman, the ultimate reality, Brahman, existence, consciousness, bliss, Sat Chidananda, pure being, pure awareness, and pure bliss, or unlimited existence, consciousness, bliss, is this one reality, Brahma Satyam. That is the only reality that there is. Then what about all this diversity that we see, men and women and humans and animals, living and non-living, the vast galaxies and the tiny subatomic particles? What about all this? Jagat Mithya. This whole world is an appearance in this one reality. In Brahman, the one reality, this diversity is an appearance. What about us? Are we reality or appearance? Satyam or Mithya? Reassuringly, Shankaracharya says, and the Advaita Vedanta says, Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. You are none other than that ultimate reality. So there is one ultimate reality, Brahman. The universe is an appearance, Jagat Mithya, and you are that reality, Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. This sentence can be further shortened. Whole of Advaita Vedanta can be expressed in even one short sentence. And you take it from the Chandogya Upanishad, Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art. That ultimate reality, you, the individual being, you are actually that ultimate reality. That ultimate reality, the reality of this entire cosmos, and the reality of this individual being, it is one reality. So this is a very stunning statement. I mean, it is so counterintuitive. Imagine this vast universe we are confronted with, and this tiny little human being, which I think I am. Advaita Vedanta has the guts, what the Jewish people call it, a chutzpah, to say that you are one and the same reality. If you would know what you truly are and what this universe truly is, you would see it is the same thing. So that's why this Tattvamasi, it's a sentence from the Chandogya Upanishad, 6th chapter of the Chandogya Upanishad, repeated 9 times there. Father is teaching the son, Tattvamasi, that thou art. 9 times it's there. Same teaching is expressed in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad as Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Same meaning, that thou art, and the realization is I am Brahman. In the Rig Veda, in the Aitareya Upanishad, same thing is taught as Prajnanam Brahma. This very consciousness which you feel, this awareness that you feel, that is the ultimate reality. In the Mandukya Upanishad, the same teaching is given as Ayam Atma Brahma. This very self is Brahman. You, the individual self, in reality, if you would know yourself in reality, you are Brahman. Let us take a moment to appreciate that how extraordinary this teaching is, how stunning, how unique. Nothing in the world comes even close to this. Swami Vivekananda, here in the West, he had said that just as the Bible is for the Christians, just as the Quran is for the Muslims, or Tripitaka for the Buddhists, the Zendavesta for the Zoroastrians, similarly, for the Hindus, what is the fundamental text? He said, it is the Vedas. Vedas are the fundamental texts for the Hindus. But, and this part is quoted, often quoted, but the next paragraph is often not quoted. He goes on to say that that in the Vedas you have the Upanishads, which is Vedanta. It is like the Upanishads, there is no other text in the world. There is no other literature in this world. The Bible and Quran and all the other texts, fundamental texts of all the religions, are more like our Smritis and Puranas. But like the Upanishads, there's nothing, no literature in the world. It's so extraordinary. So let us just appreciate for a moment what Advaita Vedanta is telling us, how stunning it is. See, religion or spirituality, the higher religion, I will call it spirituality. Spirituality can be of different forms. The most common form, which is the moment you think about religion, what do we think about? We think about faith, belief, Vishwas. In fact, the name for religion in this country, in the United States, what do they say? What is your faith? They ask you, what is your faith? Belief and religion are taken to be the same thing in most places, and especially in the West. But Advaita Vedanta is not belief. In fact, it's just the opposite. If you understand Advaita Vedanta, you will see that you are meant to understand. You're not meant to believe. See, the theistic religions, the God-centered religions of the world, they begin with belief. Nothing wrong in that. That's perfectly all right. But the problem with that is, if you start with belief, if you start questioning that belief, it will not work. For a long time in the practice of religion, it goes on Shraddha, on belief, on faith. So the devotional path, the dualistic path, the theistic path, it is based on belief. It is based on faith. Unfortunately, in this day and age, faith is under attack. It always was under attack, but especially in this day and age, if my religion is based on faith alone, belief alone, then if I listen to a few lectures of Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and Daniel Dennett and Sam Harris, it will be shaken. There's such sharp attacks are there on a faith-based approach. Say, I believe in God. Where is your God? And simple, direct answer, where? Where? Is he located in physical space? That would be a very odd kind of God, that God has a particular planet, God is sitting there. If it's not located anywhere in space, then where else is it located? What is your God? So that becomes very difficult to answer if you have a dualistic conception. Here is this universe and there is some extra cosmic God, entirely based on faith, then becomes difficult to defend. Then another kind of approach in religion and spirituality is experience-based. Experience-based means that's what made Swami Vivekananda such an effective teacher here in USA. When he came in the late 19th century, he said to the Americans here, religion is realization. Religion is not belief. To the mass of people who were vastly, majority were Christians and a few Jews, it was basically a belief-centered religion, faith-based religion. And there Vivekananda comes and says, it's not based on belief, not on faith, not on believing something. Rather, it's based on realization. If God exists, I should be able to see God or experience God. If I have an immortal soul, I must feel it. See, that is how Narendranath Datta became Vivekananda. He went to Sri Ramakrishna and asked him, not that, sir, is there God or do you believe in God? No. Have you seen God? Experience. Now, this is something that appealed to the empirical character of this age. People want empirical proof. That can it be experienced? Is it a living fact or just something in the books, just something that my Guruji has told me I have to believe? That is not appealing to a person of this age. And that is why this empirical approach, that is why Vivekananda was immediately a hit with the leading intellectuals at that time. Many people don't know that in the World Parliament of Religions, Nikola Tesla was there. And Tesla used to shut down his pavilion, that the Universal Exposition in Chicago was going on. He used to shut down his pavilion and come and stand when Vivekananda was speaking. He would sit and listen to Vivekananda. He would stand in the back of the hall and listen to Vivekananda speak and then go back to his pavilion again. And later in New York, when Swami Vivekananda came here and established the Vedanta Society of New York, Tesla used to come and regularly attend, Nikola Tesla. William James invited Swami Vivekananda. He became the first Indian to speak at Harvard University. So, experience-based approach. Now, what experience? Swami Vivekananda talked about Patanjali Yoga Sutras. In fact, his classes on Raja Yoga, which is based on Patanjali Yoga, were translated here. Now, they were published from the New York Vedanta Society. Now, if you practice meditation in a certain way, you will get this realization. You will get an extraordinary experience, like Sri Ramakrishna had a vision of Kali. You will get certain experiences which will prove to you the truth of the claims of religion. So extraordinary mystical experiences will prove to you the truth of the claims of religion, not belief, experience. What experience? Extraordinary mystical experience. Now, there is a problem with this also. What is the problem? We think about it, it will become obvious. When Sri Ramakrishna is saying, seeing Kali, darshan of Kali, what is the description? He is talking to someone who was not visible to the rest of us. So this mystical experience you are having, a skeptic, a neuroscientist might say that, well, it is a hallucination. Even Vivekananda, Narendranath, he criticized Ramakrishna by saying that, oh, you put so much pressure on your mind, you will start seeing things. In Bengali, Sri Ramakrishna said, but I see the Mother Kali, I see Ma Kali. And Narendranath, who was a very straightforward young man, he said, oh, Aman Hai, oh, Semita Hue. So you feel like that. But is it true? Is it not an hallucination? And this objection has been there against mystics all throughout. Today, a neuroscientist might say that you felt oneness with the universe, but actually you're not one with the universe. It is a stroke on the left side of your brain, one blood clot has burst or something like that, and then your personal boundaries are dissolving. You're feeling this. Just because you feel something doesn't mean it's real. So a neuroscientist may say this, and this is an old theory. I mean, all throughout the centuries, mystics have been criticized as mad. They are somebody wrote Ramana Maharshi and Ramakrishna, they're epileptic. Their epileptic seizure is there, that's why they're saying such things. So it is an old criticism. In modern terms, it is put in neuroscientific terms, but the criticism is that extraordinary mystical experiences, because they are not publicly available to all of us, we may doubt it. We may doubt it. So Advaita Vedanta is not even extraordinary mystical experience. Advaita Vedanta is not faith. It is not extraordinary mystical experiences, though these have their place, but Advaita Vedanta is not that. What are we discussing? The uniqueness of Advaita Vedanta. I want you to appreciate how unique and extraordinary this approach is. Then what is Advaita Vedanta? It is not faith. It is not extraordinary mystical experiences. Rather, we will see whatever is available to us, our common experience which everybody shares. Advaita Vedanta investigates that and leads us step by step to a realization of our true nature, of what we truly are. This claim that we are Satchidananda Brahman, we are pure immortal consciousness, this is actually demonstrated to us to our satisfaction by an investigation into our commonly held experience. Commonly held experience means what? Our typical experience of subject and object. You are the subject and everything else you experience is an object. That is enough to start Drigdrishya Viveka. Our common experience of our own being, this body-mind, which we experience ourselves. Vedanta says that's enough. You all experience yourself as a body-mind entity. Yes. Who will say no? We'll all say yes. That's enough. You don't need any belief. You don't need any extraordinary mystical experience. Let us start there. Pancha Kosha Viveka in Taittiriya Upanishad. From the body to the prana, to the mind, to the intellect. See, all of which at every step, nothing extraordinary, nothing occult. Everything is available, clear. It is an investigation, a rational investigation, a philosophical investigation into the always available experience for all of us. So this is the extraordinary approach of Advaita Vedanta, an inquiry into ourselves. See, I, this person, this conscious entity, I'm always available. Who can deny that I am conscious? That much is enough for Advaita Vedanta to start. Another way, look at the uniqueness of Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta, the spiritual journey, is not a journey in space. Journey in space means, here the spiritual journey is not that you have to go to Kailash or Kashi or Vrindavan or to Makkah or Jerusalem. It is not even that you have to go to heaven, some other place, Vaikuntha, Kailasha. No. When you are saying that there is one reality, then that one reality must be here, there, everywhere. Reality is the only thing that there is. So that reality must be here also. It's not something that is there, one day you will go there to heaven and that is where you will see God. No, here itself and everywhere. It is not a journey in time also. By journey in time, I mean, sometimes in religion you say that, and I saw this big billboard while driving along, you see sometimes, after death, you will meet God. Big letters it will be written. And below, call 1800 and so on, so call that number. So the idea that there is a post-mortem religion, that after death you will go to heaven, after death you will go to Vaikuntha, that all may be true. But notice that it is postponed in time, or after the coming of the Messiah, after 1000 years or something, the world will end and the second coming of Jesus, something like that. A future religion, something separated from you in time. But Advaita Vedanta is not like that. It says what we are talking about is available not only here, but now. It is available now, not after death. Not after that the next avatar will come then. No, it is available now and it's available all the time. This Brahman, Atman, whatever we are talking about. And it is not even a journey from yourself to something else. It is a journey into your own experience of yourself, which is continuously available to you and me and to everybody else. So in Advaita Vedanta, the spiritual journey is not a journey in space from one place to another, not even from earth to heaven. It is not even a journey in time, that from now to some other future time, a better time in the future. It is not a journey from yourself to something else. It is you yourself. Then what is the spiritual journey in Advaita Vedanta? It is a journey from ignorance to knowledge, from not knowing to knowing, from not realizing to realizing, from not recognizing to recognizing our true nature. The only thing in Advaita Vedanta is, the claim is that we don't truly know ourselves. What we truly are, we don't know it. We don't appreciate it at all. And Advaita Vedanta just shows us what we are. And the tremendous claim is, if you would see what you are, all your problems in life will be solved. Solved in what sense? Not that your mortgage will be paid off and suddenly your son and daughter will become very nice and obedient to you and your health problems will be solved, insurance will become nice. Not that all your Christmas list demands will be fulfilled. Not like that. In the deepest sense, that you will reach such a lasting peace and satisfaction that after this, nothing greater will remain to be got. And after this, no sorrow, no problem in the world can shake you. These are the words of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna. Krishna tells Arjuna, what I am teaching you, if you realize that, then yal labdva na cha aparam labham manyate tato adhikam. Having attained this, you will never think anything greater is there to attain. Yasmin steto dukkhena guruna apina vichalyate. Settled or centered in this truth, once you realize it, even the greatest of sorrows will not shake you. Notice, he does not say that no more sorrow will come to you. Ups and downs will come. But you have found something after which nothing can shake you anymore. You notice when the Buddha says overcoming sorrow, Buddha said dukkha. And we know the story of the Buddha, how the Prince Siddhartha saw an old man and a diseased man and a dead body. So old age, disease, death, these are the problems to be solved. But have you noticed, even after he became the Buddha, did he not become old? The body became old. Did he not get a disease? Yes, towards the end, the stomach disease was there. Did he not die? Yes, he died. So did the Buddha fail? After all, old age, disease and death came to the Buddha. Did he fail? No. If you ask him, you are trying to solve the problem of dukkha. Old age is dukkha, disease is dukkha, death is dukkha. Have you solved it? After all, you are experiencing old age, disease and death also ultimately. Buddha would say, yes, I have solved it. I have got something, but from which perspective all these do not matter anymore. I am not shaken by these sorrows anymore. So it is a movement from ignorance to knowledge. Knowledge of what? Our own reality. What a great claim, that the solution to all our problems and sufferings at the deepest level and the key to lasting happiness and peace is right here within us, and it is our real nature, and it can be unlocked just by knowledge. It is a knowledge system, not a faith-based approach, not even mystical experience-based approach. It is a knowledge-based approach. This is the uniqueness of Advaita Vedanta. Now, what is the process? What is the sadhana? Sadhana means, how do we do it? And the answer in Advaita Vedanta has a unique sadhana. The unique sadhana in Advaita Vedanta is called Atma Vichara, self-inquiry, inquiry into our real nature. Asking the question, who am I? And not just sitting and saying, who am I, not like a mantra. There is a process. Multiple processes are there in Advaita Vedanta, just like algorithms. Simple, direct, elegant. They'll just hold you by the hand and take you step by step, starting with the body and going to this, what they're promising, that you are this unlimited awareness, and demonstrate it to your satisfaction. Yes, you are that. And we will feel, oh, I am this unlimited awareness, immortal, beyond death, beyond any needs. Then why did I not recognize this earlier? How amazing this is. So that will be the journey. And there is a process. The process is Atma Vichara. And what is the process of Atma Vichara? There are multiple approaches. Our Srimati Kukudas has already scheduled multiple classes later on throughout the year. So we will take up these techniques as the time comes. It takes a little bit of time to take up these techniques, but I will delineate very quickly. I will touch upon it. What are these processes? The processes of Atma Vichara, for example, Drigdrishya Viveka. I'm not teaching it now, but I'll just show you what it does basically. What it does is the approach of Drigdrishya Viveka. Drigdrishya means seer and seen, knower and known, subject and object. Notice the structure of our experience, how we experience the world all the time, all of us, whether you are religious, not religious, atheist, American, Indian, whatever you are. We all experience the world as, I am the seer and I'm seeing this. I am the hearer and I'm hearing all these sounds. I am the knower, I am knowing all this. I am the subject and all this is object for me. This is the structure of our experience. And then it shows you how you inquire into the subject. That what is the subject? Not religious, atheist, American, Indian. Yes. So when you inquire into the subject, you see that the subject, the drashta, is different from the drishya. It is not the body. It is not even the sensory system. You see that even the senses, the mind, our thoughts and feelings, they are also objects. And you are the awareness which experiences these objects, not only the physical objects outside, not only the body, not only the breath as you go subtler and subtler inwards, not only the thoughts, feelings, emotions, even the ideas, even this Vedantic inquiry, that is also something in the mind. It's also a process going on in the intellect. All of these are experienced. The activities of the mind and the absence of activities of the mind in deep sleep, in meditation, in samadhi, all of them are equally experienced by you. But that you is not an object. The pure subject is not an object. It is awareness, which is non-objective awareness. And what it is, all that we will see later on, step by step, we will see in a future class. Another approach you find in Taittiriya Upanishad. It says, you are infinite existence consciousness. How to know that? So you start like any good teacher. Any good teacher knows the way to start is to go from the known to the unknown. Whatever the students know, you start there. And then step by step, take them into what they do not know. You have to go from the known to the unknown, from the near to the far, from what is to what shall be. Of course, this is the golden rule of teaching, but when you apply it to Advaita Vedanta, it becomes very interesting. It is from the known to the more than known, from the near to the nearest, from what is to what always is. So that will be the journey. What the Taittiriya Upanishad does is just start with, what do you feel you are? You feel you are not Satchidananda Brahman, but what do you feel you are? Point to it. So we feel we are this body. So it starts with the body. and says, look, this body is a product of food and drink. Whatever you eat and drink, that becomes this body. It's called the Annamaya. So starting with the body, inquiring deeper, physical body, then the physiological processes which sustain this physical body, which is called Pranamaya. Even more subtle, the thoughts, emotions, perceptions, which we call our mind, Manomaya. Even more subtle, the intellectual comprehension, the process which we are taking, for example, right now, trying to understand the Vijnanamaya. Even beyond that, the blankness that we experience when the mind is shut down in deep sleep, for example, or in meditation, the Anandamaya, and that which is the witness, the experiencer of all these 5 levels, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya, all of them appear to one consciousness. That you are. Again, if you think about it itself, it's like a meditation. You will go inwards and become calm and settled in that calmness. That is called Panchakosha Viveka. Then even more profound and extraordinary, Mandukya Upanishad, the shortest of the Upanishads. We will do that at some point, where it is the Avasthatraya Vichara. You see, our whole life has 3 kinds of experiences. One is the waking. Right now, we are all awake. It is this world, I am here in this body and I'm experiencing this world. This is called Jagrat, waking. But we also all have an experience of falling asleep and dreams. Experiences are still going on, but they're very strange. I've forgotten that I'm lying on the bed and sleeping, but I have experiences of going to other places and meeting people, all imagined in the mind. Wake up and say, oh, it was a dream. Swapno dekhuchili. So that experience of dreaming. And then we have the dreams also shut down. Absolute deep sleep. Sushupti. So these 3 states we experience. Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Using these 3 states, it is pointed out to us that it is the same awareness to which the Jagrat appears, the Sushupti, the Swapna appears, and the Sushupti appears. They appear and come and go. You, the awareness, are constant. That is a wonderful process which is pointed out in, which is taught in the Mandukya Upanishad. But all of these processes, in all these Upanishads, Avasthatraya, Panchakosha, Drigdrishya, all of them are pointing out only one thing, that you are this unlimited, unchanging awareness. So this is the answer to the question, who am I? That I am this awareness which is behind, this is primary, which enables me to have all the experiences of life. It is always there, even in waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. And it will be shown to us that it is not born with the birth of the body, it does not die with the death of the body. Happiness and unhappiness come to the mind, not to the awareness itself, which illumines the happiness and unhappiness. Old age, disease, death come to the body and the prana, not to awareness, which illumines the presence or absence of health and disease. So this awareness itself is free of unhappiness, is free of old age, disease, and death, is free of all problems. And centered in that, we begin to appreciate that what is meant by moksha. And living from that perspective, this is called Jivan Mukti. How do we get that? What is the basic procedure? The basic sadhana in Advaita Vedanta is called Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. We will do that later in detail. This study, so the study which we are doing now, already it is Shravana, what we are doing. So systematically studying the texts of Vedanta, so you get the knowledge. It's nothing very extraordinary. That's how you learn in college. When you go to university and enroll for a course in engineering or medicine or physics, what do? You read the texts, read the handouts, go to the classes, listen to the professors. That is Shravana. But then you must think about it. You must try to understand. You must ask questions. See, this is how it differentiated from the path of devotion or bhakti. In bhakti, you can't start asking questions straight away. You must believe and start with belief and surrender and adoration and devotion. But here, you must not believe. Suppose a professor writes E is equal to mc square on the blackboard, and he says, do you get it? And we say, I don't get it, sir, but you are great. So whatever you say, I will believe. The professor will be furious with you. You're supposed to understand it. Exactly like that. Advaita Vedanta is like that. You must understand what is meant by this inquiry. You must feel it in your bones that yes, it is true. Then only it will work. So manana, asking any kind of question. I remember I was a young brahmachari asking our Swami Atmapriyanandaji, who was teaching us Vedanta many years ago, more than 20 years ago in near Belur Math. So I was asked I said, Maharaj, I have some questions. I thought he might be upset. Some questions. And he said, you ask any questions you like. Better brains than yours have asked searching all possible questions for a period of thousands of years, questions which you cannot even imagine. So don't think that if you ask a few questions, then Advaita Vedanta will crumble. Happily ask whatever questions you like, and they will all be answered to your satisfaction. That is mananam. And then once clarity is attained, that I've got it, I understand what is meant, then you stay with that through meditation techniques, which is called nididhyasana, till it becomes a living reality. That yes, you can confidently sing like Shankaracharya, Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. I am of the nature of Shiva, I am of the nature of unlimited consciousness and bliss, and indeed I am beyond all trouble, all problems. So at least at the personal level, all your problems are solved. So that is a sort of outline of what Advaita Vedanta is. Many more things to be said. We will take it up slowly. Now, today I rushed through it, but in future sessions, we'll take it up slowly and discuss it. Let me do a chant and then we'll take up questions. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Right. So shall we do the Q&A now?
Yes, Swamiji. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for this. Although you say it's I rushed through, किंतु हमको तो लगिला आपण गोटे पूरा 30,000 feet overview आज देले. There are so many parts and pieces आपण touch करले. Problem definition to आरंभ करके problem रो solution पर्यंत different processes and what the basic processes सब आपण कहले. एबे निश्चय हमें क्वेश्चन आंसर आड़ की जीवा. मु गोटे क्वेश्चन अबिका देखुची चार्ट विंडो रे भद्रभक्ति पचारछंती विवेक दास पचारछंती excellent discussion Swamiji. One subject that is a little hard to understand is that why bad things are happening sometimes to good people. If the supreme consciousness is in every person, then why World Wars 1 and 2 happened? Why so much death and destruction? Then is that awareness not known to everybody? Kindly help us understand, please.
This is called the problem of evil in religions. See, every religion has to answer this. Problem of evil means, why is there suffering? Suppose God exists. Suppose there is this ultimate reality. Then why does God permit so much suffering? There is no doubt a tremendous amount of suffering in this world. And some of it cannot be removed also. So how is suffering compatible with the existence of God? This is the definition of the problem. And I will say, really the only answer can come from Advaita Vedanta. Others will be difficult to give answers from other perspectives. There is a book, Problem of Evil in Indian Philosophy. Arthur Herman, he was a professor of philosophy in Hawaii University. I think he has passed. And this book is very interesting. He asked this question and said, what is the answer you can find? And he found, I think, 23 answers from the different philosophies of the world, different religions of the world, including philosophy and literature also. And he compiled all of those answers. I will not go into the details of those. You will find most of them are not very satisfactory. For example, let me give one example. Your question is, why is there so much suffering? And how can you reconcile it to the existence of the ultimate reality? One answer you find in, say, Christian theology is that it helps to build up strength, soul making. So by suffering, our character increases. In some sense, it may be true. A little bit of struggling and suffering can help us to become a stronger person, but not always. When animals are suffering, clearly animals are suffering. In nature, when a predator catches its prey, they are suffering. Lion catches the deer is suffering. A snake catches the mouse is suffering. What character is built there? Little children, they may die of disease, when there's medical treatment is not good enough. Babies may die, and that we are seeing all the time. What character is built at that level? Nothing. You cannot say that suffering leads to character development, so suffering is good. So it is not a satisfactory answer. Like that, there are many, many theories. I will not go through it. 23 theories are there. Let me go to 2 or 3 important theories which are from the Indian perspective, which you might say are satisfactory to a logical mind. So one is the Buddhist idea that sarvam anityam. The Buddha said, dukkha, there is suffering. Why is there suffering? He said, anityam, anityam, sarvam anityam. Impermanent, everything is impermanent. Not only impermanent, but kshanikam, sarvam kshanikam. Momentary, everything is momentary. Not only impermanent and momentary. Shunyam, sarvam shunyam. Empty, all is empty. And therefore, dukkham, sarvam dukkham. Suffering, all is suffering. So it's a very deep analysis. If you want to go into a little more depth of that, I suggest you look up, I have got a talk, the 4 Noble Truths of Buddhism. If you look up with my name, Sarva Priyananda, on YouTube, and 4 Noble Truths, I have analyzed this truth of suffering. But the basic idea here is, what is pleasing to us, what is satisfactory to us. Note that many factors have to be at an optimum level for us to be satisfied. My health must be good. There must be no pain or ache in the body. People must treat me nicely. My financial situation must be good. The weather must be good. Office situation must be good. Family relationship must be good. And my stomach must be nicely full with acceptable food and drink. All of these together should be there, then only I'll be perfectly satisfied. Even if such a situation comes, what did the Buddha say? Anityam, sarvam anityam. Everything is subject to change. So the optimum situation, even if we get it and get fully satisfied, it will change. And the moment it changes, our optimum satisfaction will go away. So always dissatisfaction will be there. And that is the meaning of dukkha. And sometimes the dissatisfaction will be very deep, will be sorrow and pain. So the answer is, why is there this suffering? Because it is the very nature of the world. Krishna says this in the Gita in just half a sentence. He says, prapya imam asukham lokam bhajasvama. He says, asukham lokam. This world is constituted by sorrow and dissatisfaction. If you come to a place which is subject to change, and you say, why is it changing? That is not a valid question. A place which is designed to give unhappiness and dissatisfaction, and you're saying, why am I dissatisfied? Not a valid question. It is the very nature of this universe that our satisfaction will never be permanent here. Second, but you say, how is compatible with God? Well, notice that Buddha does not talk about God or does not talk about belief in God. He says this is the nature of existence, and there is a solution to it. Nirvana is possible. The second theory is the theory of karma. These are the theories you can take seriously to answer your question. Theory of karma. What is karma? Causality. Cause and effect. Actions have consequences. So whatever we are experiencing is in some sense an effect of past actions. And whatever we are today is the result of what we have done in the past, and that implies past lives. That's why karma theory implies reincarnation also, punarjanma. And what we do today will lead to our future. We can build our future today also. Advaita Vedanta has a unique answer to your question. It is the only one which says, ultimately it is all right. Just as all the sufferings of the dream, the nightmare is solved once you wake up. Once you realize, oh, it was a dream, then you are not upset by whatever happened in the dream. Similarly, when you realize your own Brahman nature, from that perspective, you realize it was all right. It was all right, then what about all those suffering people? But all those suffering people and all those suffering, even that mouse which is being caught by the snake and the cobra, all of that ultimately is Brahman. So from that perspective, it is all right for the mouse and the cobra also. If we are one reality, and that reality is actually beyond suffering, like a movie screen, for example. If you have a tragedy there on the movie screen is not affected. If there is an explosion in the movie, the screen will not get burnt. If there is a flood being shown in the movie, the screen will not get wet. The screen is the reality, the movie is the display. Samsara is the display, but Brahman is the reality. And you are Brahman, not the display. And the difference, to bridge this gap, all you need is the knowledge of the realization. And that is, if it is true, then that's an amazing and elegant solution to this problem. Okay.
Vivek Das also had a second question. I believe this also answers. His question was why there is greed, corruption, cruelty, etc. I believe Swamiji's explanation exactly answers that question also. We got to go to the next question by Dr. Basanta Parida. Thank you, Swamiji. Could you kindly explain the process of Nididhyasana, please?
Dr. Parida, it's a good question. We will come to it eventually. I will just touch upon it a little bit, and then we will discuss it when the time comes. Nididhyasana is Vedantic meditation. For the benefit of others, notice when I said, what is the process for getting this knowledge? Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. What is the process? Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Shravana, systematically hearing and studying the Vedanta texts from a competent teacher. Manana, to reflect upon it, cogitate upon it, and get a grasp, a clarity about it, the teachings. You understand it fully, thoroughly. Then Nididhyasana, to immerse yourself in what you have understood till it becomes a living reality. Technically, what is the purpose of Shravana? What is the purpose of Manana? What is the purpose of Nididhyasana? The purpose of Shravana is actually Jnana. Knowledge comes from Shravana. Knowledge comes from the study itself. But it is obstructed by two kinds of obstructions. One is technically called asambhavana, impossibility. You might get this, when you're studying physics. If you read E is equal to mc square, all right, I have got the knowledge E is equal to mc square, but it seems impossible. How can matter and energy be the same reality? And then I inquire into it, I work out the mathematics of it, and then I understand, oh, this is the meaning. So that is the process of manana, which removes the doubts. I am Brahman, this is too much. I am this being, this physical body, or this mind, this personality. That is inquired into, and the clarity is achieved, that is manana. But now one more problem remains. One more problem remains. What is the problem? It is called, technically it is called viparita bhavana, contrary tendencies. We have trained ourselves to behave and react as if we are this limited personality. I am this little body. So ill health comes, I am sick. Hunger comes, I am hungry. I am this little mind. So little unhappiness comes, I am miserable. This is a habit. We don't calculate. There is unhappiness in the mind. I am the mind, therefore I am unhappy. We don't think like that. It's automatic for us. So this automatic trained behavior, this pattern, this has to be changed. How do you change this? The understanding that you have got, that I am the witness consciousness, which you have already got by Shravana and Manana, you stay with that. The staying with that understanding is called Nididhyasana. The deepening of that understanding into a vivid experience of life. Swami Vivekananda called it assimilation. He says, tell yourself again and again, so aham, I am he, I am that, until it tingles with every drop of your blood, not by brainwashing, understanding. After understanding, stay with it. That staying with it is called Nididhyasana. But your question, Dr. Parida's question was, what is the process of Nididhyasana? I will not tell today, but I'll indicate. There are 6 processes of Nididhyasana which are given in Drigdrishya Viveka towards the end. There are 15 processes of Nididhyasana given in Aparoksha Anubhuti towards the end of Aparoksha Anubhuti. So in multiple texts, you will find multiple processes which are given, some of which we will touch upon in later classes.
Ms. Nalini Sasmal asked this question, sir. In Gaudapada's Mandukya Karika, you have explained the Amani Bhava, no mind state. Also, you have emphasized on reducing thoughts as much as possible to increase focus and concentration. Are the both above mean the same? Following no mind state extended periods, is there possibility of entering the higher consciousness states?
This is an advanced question, but we'll deal with it later again. But let me just mention here that no mind does not mean what it seems to mean. When I say mind, we mean thoughts, feelings, emotions, perceptions. So he's saying no mind. That means there will be no thoughts, no feelings, no emotions, no perception, blankness. But that you experience in deep sleep also. Is that a highly spiritual state, deep sleep? No. If you look at what Gaudapada means by no mind, he means pure consciousness actually. So ultimate meaning of no mind, Amani Bhava, is Atman, is the pure consciousness which you already are. So that pure consciousness being centered in that is the no mind of Advaita Vedanta of Gaudapada. Yes, what you said, calming the mind down, calming the activity of the mind, focusing it and silencing it for periods of time is an excellent way to appreciate that I am not the mind. When the mind is silent, I am the witness of the silent mind. When the mind is active, I am the witness of the active mind. Then what is this I? It is consciousness. It is awareness. Like a light shining upon activity and a light shining upon no activity also. The light is constant. That constant light I am.
A question comes from Babru. What differentiate between true and false? Probably he means Satya and Mithya beyond a change of understanding in an individual.
Criterion of truth. So I was giving a talk on introduction to Advaita Vedanta, but here they are all advanced philosophy questions are being asked. So none of these questions are introductory level. They are all advanced questions. How do you determine when you say Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, Brahman is real and world is false? How do you determine what is true and false? What is the criterion? So this is a very profound philosophical question. How do you distinguish between true and false? I'll tell you what is the answer from Advaita Vedanta. But let me just, for contrast, let me just give you the answer from Buddhism and then compare it with Advaita Vedanta. In Buddhism, some schools of Buddhism, the answer is truth of the definition of truth, Satyatvam. Artha Kriyakaritvam Satyatvam. Practical efficacy is truth. So what does that mean? It means if a thing works as it is expected to work, it is real. So I am thirsty and there is water. If I go there and drink that water and my thirst is quenched, then it is really water. It's true. It worked. So what is, if it works as it is expected to, then it is real. Artha Kriyakaritvam, practical efficacy. And interestingly, these theories came up in India more than 2000 years ago, a couple of centuries after the Buddha. And this is the criterion of truth in the modern American philosophy of pragmatism. William James, Charles Sanders Peirce, and all. Practical efficacy is the criterion of truth. Now, Advaita Vedanta rejects this. So actually, my answer is the Advaita criterion of truth. But just to contrast, I want to give you this example of Buddhist theory of truth. Advaita Vedanta rejects this. What Advaita Vedanta says is, suppose you go there, the Buddhist says, if you drink water and it quenches your thirst, it is true. So the water in the mirage is not true, because you go to the mirage and you see there is no water there. So it looked like water, but it did not quench your thirst. If you go near that, you see it is not there at all. So it is false. But the real water, if you drink it, it will quench your thirst. It will feel cool and liquid and all. And so all criterion are satisfied of it being real water. That is real. Advaita Vedanta rejects this. It says, no. It says, Mr. Buddhist, if you drink the water and you say, my thirst is quenched, it is real water. Next moment you wake up and sit on your bed, and you realize, oh, I was dreaming it all. I did not drink any water, and my thirst was not quenched. Now there is water by my bedside. I will drink that. My thirst will be quenched. Now that water, which I thought was quenching my thirst, and next moment I realized that it was in the dream. Then you, O Buddhist, you will also have to admit that was not real water. Will you say, I have already drunk water? No, you will drink the water which is next to your bedside, which means you admit the water experienced in the dream water is not real, though it seemed to work, quench your thirst in the dream. Artha kriyakaritvam. Then the Buddhist says, well, fine, then what is your criterion of truth? Advaita Babu, what is your criterion of truth? Tell me. This is how sadhus in Uttarakhand they would say, Vedanta Babu, aap bataiye, tuk satya kya hai? What is your truth, criterion of truth? The Vedantin says, Advaitin says, the criterion of truth is abhaditvam, satyatvam. Abhadita means non-cancelled or non-negated. Something that cannot be falsified is truth. It's very interesting how in 20th century, Potter came up with the criterion of truth in science, falsifiability. And so centuries ago, in a slightly different sense, Advaitins were saying abhadita, abhaditatvam satyatvam, that which is abhadita, trikala abhadita, which is uncancelled. So the water in the dream was cancelled. When you wake up, you say, oh, it was not water, it was just a dream. Swapna dekhutli. Pani to pakhare achi. That is real water. That cancellation, it is not a snake, it is a rope. Then we say snake is false. So cancellation is a sign of falsity. Uncancellability, unfalsifiability is a sign of reality. Now here somebody may ask, how do you know a thing will not be falsified? Today it is unfalsified. Next moment it may be falsified. Tomorrow it may be falsified. How will you know? How will you know it is unfalsifiable? And there Advaita Vedanta will say, think about one thing which cannot be falsified. What is the one thing which is impossible to falsify? What does falsification depend upon? It depends upon that cognition. This is false, this is real. And that cognition depends upon consciousness. That consciousness which saw the false water, the dream water, that consciousness recognizes it is false. That is not really water. But the consciousness itself cannot be falsified. If you try to falsify consciousness, what will it be? Oh, I thought it was consciousness. Now I realize it's not consciousness. No, it cannot happen. If you were conscious, you were conscious. Notice, even in a dream, the contents of the dream are cancelled when you wake up. But the consciousness which saw the dream cannot be cancelled because you actually saw the dream. So awareness or consciousness is something that cannot be denied. To some extent, Descartes realized it 300 years ago. Cogito ergo sum, he said, I exist. I think, therefore I exist. He did not understand the difference between mind and consciousness. If you go a little deeper than that, Descartes stopped there. But if he had gone deeper, he would have come to the Advaitic truth. Consciousness cannot be falsified. And therefore, the only thing which is undoubtedly true, in principle it is true, you cannot falsify in any way, that is awareness itself, consciousness itself. You don't even need Advaita for this. Sankhya is enough. Sankhya philosophy says this already. Kapila had already said this. So, according to Advaita Vedanta, criterion of truth is unfalsifiability, unnegatability. Trikala abhaditatvam satyatvam. In 3 periods of time, that which cannot be cancelled, has not been cancelled in the past, is not cancelled now, is impossible to cancel in the future, that alone is the truth. And only one thing is there like that. That is Chit or consciousness. That is Sat, existence. You just think about it, homework, think about it. Why existence cannot be cancelled. So,
Swamiji will take the next question. This comes from Miss Aparna Mukherjee. I am a stay-at-home mom of a toddler I remain tied up in samsara. Except for daily puja and listening to your talks, bhajans in the morning. I hardly do anything else spiritually, and sometimes I feel guilty about not doing enough for my spiritual growth. What process should I follow in my daily life to advance in spirituality?
The process is to turn one's daily life into spiritual practice. You're looking after the child, you think it is the baby Krishna, or if it's a girl, it's the baby divine mother who has come in my house in this form. Don't tell anybody. Mentally say, I'm worshipping God in this form. When I'm cooking in the kitchen, I am preparing bhoga for the Lord. The Lord in all these forms will eat this food, and I am grateful that I'm getting this chance. See, our daily life must be spiritualized. Otherwise, if there is a conflict between sadhana and our secular life, then sadhana will always lose, because your job, your family, your engagements, they take up so much time. Your school, your studies, it takes up so much time and energy, then nothing will be left over for spiritual practice. So there must be some way of connecting our day-to-day activities to spiritual practice, and Advaita gives us this basis. See, here in Advaita, there is no distinction between secular and spiritual. We are not talking about some God who is far away. It is Brahman alone who is appearing in all these forms to us. There is one existence alone, which appears in all these forms as husband, wife, the toddler, the house and the household items. All of this is Brahman alone. If this is true, even though I may not feel it now, if this is true, we take it as a working hypothesis, then it should be possible my day-to-day activities also can be spiritualized. Why not? So karma yoga is one answer, is spiritualization of my daily activities. Do whatever you're doing and offer it to God.
Mr. Tilak Mishra asks, Pranam, it was mentioned that Advaita Vedanta is about knowledge of the realization. How someone with less degree, I believe less degree is not very clear, probably less understanding of this existing matter, can understand such a complex subject?
First of all, it's not a complex subject. It's actually pretty simple. We are complex. We have made things very complex. And so it seems very subtle, very sophisticated, very intellectual, and it can be. There are many kinds of arguments, many texts, but you don't have to go through all that. Any one text, each text tells you the same thing. It's not that there is a syllabus which you have to complete with many things. You can read as much as you like, but they will all the texts will tell you the same thing. And the same thing is simply Tattvamasi. You are that. So that basic idea has to be grasped. Our great Swami in our order, Swami Bhuteshanand, used to say in Bengali, he would say, Shukha buddhi noy, Shuddha buddhi. We are not interested in a subtle intellect which can understand many things. We are interested in a pure intellect, a pure mind. Pure mind grasps it quickly. There are many very intelligent people who will not at all subscribe to this, any kind of spirituality. That's because intelligence and purity are not the same thing. So a person who may not be very well read, may not have many degrees, and yet have a simple and pure understanding, we can get the Advaitic truth easily. Another person who may have learned philosophy and may be pretty high, intelligent and sharp, will still be full of doubts. Yeah. So Shuddha Buddhi, not Sukshma Buddhi.
One question comes from Mr. Parida. When Buddha realized self, then the same sorrow, pain of old age, disease didn't affect his mental peace. My belief is only when someone understands and fully realizes self, then only his worldly pain and sorrow won't affect you. But what is the question here?
Well, let me comment on this. You're right. It is only after realization that you will get the benefit of this, but it is not that all or nothing, that until I get the realization that the Buddha had, or the realization Shankar or Vivekananda had, until that time there will be no benefit. No. Day to day, month to month, you will get benefit. So the spiritual path, whatever your path, I'm not saying you only have to be an Advaitin. You may have deep devotion to God, bhakti. You may be a meditator, you may do karma yoga and seva to Shiva Jnani, Jiva Seva, whatever your spiritual path, Hindu or Buddhist, whichever path, you will get day-to-day benefits. It's not that at the end only you will get some benefit. So even before becoming enlightened, some benefit, some strength of mind, some peace of mind you will get. Let me just share with you something I've shared many times earlier. 2 years back, I was at this Harvard Divinity School. One professor of philosophy, he asked this question: how many people get enlightenment, moksha? Very few. So why should we start this project? If success rate is so low, then what is the point of starting this whole spiritual practice and sadhana? If I don't get, there's very little chance of success. My answer, I gave 2 answers and he gave a third answer, which is very good. So all these 3 answers I will tell you. Why should I do sadhana if success rate is so low? I said, first of all, success rate is not low. It is guaranteed. You are Brahman. What will prevent you from realizing that you are Brahman? So today or tomorrow, this life or the next, we don't know when, but we will all become enlightened. That is the whole game of life, to take us to enlightenment. So success in that long range, success is guaranteed. Second, once one gets the taste of spiritual life, what else will you do? Whether it is ultimately you're getting moksha, nirvana or not, you become Buddha or Vivekananda. But if you're not becoming that, will you give it up? No. It is such a wonderful thing. One will not give it up. It's the highest thing in life. I've seen many times the people complain, I'm not progressing in spiritual life. Nothing is happening. I'm not getting anything. Then stop. Don't go to the temple. Don't sing bhajans. Just stop. Remove all the icons of what to do, puja. Convert the puja ghar into a storeroom, something like that. Do that. No, absolutely not. That's the most valuable part of my life. How can I give that up? See? So that's the second answer. Then the professor said, these 2 are good answers, that ultimately one will get enlightenment. And second, it is the highest thing. So what can compare to it? But I will give you a more practical answer. Why people stay in spiritual life? The third answer, which he gave, that professor, he said that the benefit that we get from spiritual life, from meditation, from listening to devotional music, from the study of Vedanta, that benefit, day-to-day benefit, peace of mind and joy, which we keep getting, that is enough to keep people in spiritual life. So that's a very nice answer. I agree. That is the real practical answer. Today and tomorrow and day after, I may not become Buddha, but I'm getting so much benefit from this path, I will definitely stick to it.
Beautiful. That's a very beautiful response, Swamiji. Let me ask one question by Mr. Ponda. How does Vedanta address that existence and non-existence are not concept of the mind? For example, in the deep sleep state, when mind disappears, the concept of existence and non-existence disappears during that state. Of course, only looking from the perspective of the wakeful state. Would you kindly enlighten us on this?
Right. So existence and non-existence are concepts of the mind. No doubt, you're talking about it, so it's a concept. But concept of the mind, does it mean that there is nothing at all? After all, the mind exists, does it not? To even have a concept, it must exist. Shankaracharya gives the answer to this question. He says that Yaeva tasya nirakarta tasyeva atmasa. Whoever says that there is no such thing as Atma, it is the Atman of that very person. It is like saying that if you say out with your mouth, if you say, I cannot speak, you have falsified your own statement. You are speaking. Just by saying that I cannot speak, you have falsified your own statement. Just by saying that there is no existence, non-existence, such concepts are not there in deep sleep, that means, was there nothing in deep sleep? If there's nothing, then how did you wake up? What came again? Where did the mind come from? I asked this question actually in a philosophy of mind class. Descartes says, I think, therefore I exist. But in deep sleep, Descartes stops thinking. So does Descartes go out of existence? Every time he starts thinking, does a new Descartes come into existence? So it is not that I think, therefore I exist, cogito ergo sum. It's the opposite. I exist, therefore I think. See, in Advaita Vedanta, what do we say? Consciousness is the witness of the thinking mind. Consciousness is the witness of the silent mind also. So when the mind is not thinking, then consciousness is the witness of the not thinking mind also. When the mind is completely blank, no waking, no dreaming, just deep sleep and no experience at all, no experience of any particular thing at all, that also is an experience because it is lit up by consciousness, which shows the blankness of everything. Yes, then the mind comes and then starts thinking about it and then has certain concepts, existence, non-existence. But even if the mind does not think, that which is behind the mind, which is the reality of the mind, is always there, whether you think about it or not.
Thank you, Swamiji. Amrita asked this question, Swamiji. I was wondering if consciousness is the underlying truth in all experiences and is thus how we help define Brahman. How can we be sure Brahman existed before the first living organism? How do we define consciousness in that regard? Thank you so much.
Yes. Notice one thing. What is behind this question? We have always been taught that what are we? We are living organisms and with a brain and nervous system. And this brain and nervous system have produced consciousness. Therefore, consciousness did not exist before the brain and the nervous system. Consciousness did not exist, at least my consciousness, I did not exist before the birth of this body. And before the birth of any bodies, before living beings came into being, this non-living universe was there before life evolved. So there was no consciousness at that time. Now this is what is called the materialist reductionist paradigm. This one, we will talk about this later. The answer to this question is twofold. One is that the term is hard problem of consciousness. How are you sure that consciousness is a byproduct of the brain only? This is a huge problem today. If it had been solved that the living brain produces consciousness, if it could have been demonstrated, then all these theories would collapse. The Sankhya, Advaita, some of the Buddhist theories, then it is just a product of the body. When the body dies, then consciousness will also go. All your immortal Atman and survival after death, all that will go out of the window. But for that to happen, you have to prove that the brain is producing consciousness. And that is the focus of research right now. If you Google hard problem of consciousness, it's a huge problem now. And they are coming, a lot of very respectable philosophers and scientists are now reluctantly coming to the conclusion we cannot reduce consciousness to brain activity. Brain activity is there, consciousness is there, they are related, but they are not the same. There is a correlation. That much we can say. But there is no causal production of consciousness through the brain. Therefore, you cannot say consciousness was not there when the body was not there, when the living beings were not there. How can you say that? If living bodies produced consciousness, you could say that. But if living bodies do not produce consciousness, suppose consciousness is that which uses living bodies as a medium of activity. I often say that in a lecture hall, all these people have come through the door. Now, will I say that the door produced all these people because they're all coming through the door, and ultimately after the lecture, they will all disappear through the door? So the door is the God which has produced all these people. They come from door and they disappear into door. No, the door is simply the gateway through all these people which all these people have entered. Someone might say you are saying all this from an Eastern philosophy perspective, but no, I'm not just me. What is hopeful is that a lot of scientists and philosophers, the term hard problem of consciousness has been coined by David Chalmers, who is the head of the mind-brain consciousness unit of NYU, New York University, right here. Just Google it and see what a huge problem it is now. It is the cutting edge of consciousness research. Why we cannot explain consciousness through brain activity. Therefore, before all the living beings emerged, now the answer from Vedantic perspective, before all the living beings emerged, there was a world without any life at all. Yes, if you say that was the situation, granted that was the situation, consciousness still existed. It was just unable to act in the world through any living beings. That is the idea of Sankhya philosophy. There is a material nature and there is consciousness. When material nature evolves life, and in life highly evolved nervous systems and brains, then consciousness is able to interact with material nature through those brains and nervous systems. Otherwise, consciousness remains by itself, and it is present everywhere in material nature. Who is saying this? Not Sarvapriyananda, not Advaita Vedanta or Mahayana Buddhism. David Chalmers is talking about it. He calls it panpsychism. It's an old idea. He has revived it now. And you will see a lot of arguments going on online. Some are saying this is nonsense, when we cannot allow it. Some are saying that is the only solution possible. There's no other solution to this problem of consciousness which is possible. Two problems are there if you say world exists without consciousness. And this answer I'm giving from a Tibetan Lama. He said, if you think that there is the scientific paradigm, there is an external physical world, that is the reality, and somehow it has produced life and consciousness. Two big problems. One problem is, notice, for the very existence of the external world, what has to testify to it? Consciousness. Just think about it. All the things in the external world, that the very idea that external world existed before any human beings, before life evolved, there was this universe dead without any life. Who is saying this? Conscious being. In consciousness alone, this idea can arise. Then that there is an external world outside consciousness, that is difficult to demonstrate. And this is, I think Kant called it the standing scandal of philosophy, that we cannot refute idealism, subjective idealism. It's difficult to refute. There's one big problem. You cannot demonstrate that there is an external world apart from consciousness. Second, the big problem will be, you cannot demonstrate how a physical entity like a brain and nervous system can produce a subjective entity like consciousness. That is the so-called hard problem of consciousness. So two problems, think about it. There is no clear way of demonstrating an external world exists apart from the knowing subject, because every external world, every instance is an instance which is given to the knowing subject. Let me explain just a little more and it will become clear. We have here our oldest member in Vedanta Society, Bill Conrad. He's 97 years old. He is a veteran of the Second World War. He used to fly bombers in the Pacific Theater. He is a physicist, biophysicist. So he asked this question. No, Swamiji, you cannot say consciousness is everything. Suppose we go out of this room and we leave a camera operating in this room. They have all gone. No conscious being in this room. And then we come back and we take a look at the film in the camera. You will see empty room is there. Room continued to exist without any consciousness. It's not that you are imagining the room and therefore the room exists like a dream. No, room exists by itself. World exists by itself, whether you see it or not. This is called realism. Now, what was my answer to Bill? I said, think about it this way. In your consciousness, you raise this question, does the world exist apart from my consciousness? In your consciousness, you devise the example, the experiment, camera, and I and Swami will leave the room. Then we will come back and examine the film in the camera. In your consciousness, we left the room. In your consciousness, we come back into the room. In your consciousness, we open the camera. In your consciousness, we see the film, which is that the empty room exists without any other person in there. But the whole thing is going on in your consciousness, is it not? He had to admit, after thinking it through, technically it is true. It's difficult to accept, but it is impossible to refute it. Whatever we do, all our science, all our idea of universe existing without consciousness is still being done in consciousness, and there is no way of jumping out of it. So anyway, I think we have run out of time really, so we should wrap it up. There'll be enough time, I think, in the classes to come, where we'll go deeper into the subject of Advaita Vedanta.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. Absolutely, absolutely, beautiful explanation of all questions asked by our members, especially the last one, non-refutable part of the truth, Satyam. समस्त श्रोता बंधु मानकर समस्त प्रश्नर उत्तर देथिबारु ओडिशा सोसाइटी ऑफ अमेरिका तरफरु स्वामी जी आपन को अनेक अनेक धन्यवाद प्रणाम। अद्वैत वेदांत ब्रह्म ज्ञान प्राप्तिर विशाल समुद्र आज आपण आम मानकर पथ प्रदर्शन करिथिबारु आमे सेइथरु 2 अंजुली जल संग्रह करि परिछु से सौभाग्य हमर हेछि। उपस्थित समस्त श्रोता बंधु मानक मध्य मोर आंतरिक धन्यवाद। आपनक उपस्थिति और सक्रिय अंशग्रहण जगु हमर एई अभिनव प्रचेष्टा फलप्रद होई परिछि। मो पाखरे आपण मानक ठरु आहुरी अनेक प्रश्न अछि किंतु आमे डेफिनेटली समय हमर सरी जाइछि किंतु आमे पुन थेर आसंता मार्च 12 तारिख रे एई समय रे एठी एकत्रित हवा आ स्वामी जी हमकु आउ थरे एई सब विषय रे अद्वैत वेदांत विषय रे फर्दर डीपर अंडरस्टैंडिंग आमे तांको ठु पाई परिबा। बिफोर वी एंड हमर गोटे हिंदू परंपरा रहिछि आमे जेउ जाकू माने जने छात्र जते गुरुंक पाखकु जाए किछि यज्ञ संविधा धरिकी जानती जे सेटा होछि गुरुंक पाखरे हमर आहुति देवा पय यज्ञ कुंड रे आहुति देवा पय आमे माने मनस्थ करिछु जे आपण मानकर एही प्रकार आध्यात्मिक सत्संग रे जदि आमे आपण किछि स्वामी जी को गुरु दक्षिणा आकारे दबाकू इच्छा करंती तबे आमे गोटे जेली माध्यम रे आपण मानक ठरु किछि दान दानार्थ कलेक्शन करबा को अनुरोध करूछु। आ मु बर्तन शेयर करछि आपण पाखु कि भली भाबरे आपण माने हमकु किछि धनराशि पठाई परिबे तो टिके sorry for the technical thing is please send your charitable donations to the following Jelly account manojsahu@yahoo.com. Contributions for this webinar will be collected until January 15th. So we are giving you 1 week time to send your donations, please. Your name, email, and amount will be given to the OSA treasurer. OSA treasurer will send the proceed to Vedanta Society of New York, and OSA treasurer will send you 501c3 tax deductible receipts. You must send your email address to get a receipt. Jelly doesn't share your contact information with us. I will also post this instruction in the OSA net very soon. That will keep us going further in this direction. We have received from Vedanta Society of New York about their various charitable efforts, especially very recently the Ramakrishna Mission School in Alu, Arunachal Pradesh. So Swamiji as well as Vedanta Society of New York, they are involved with multiple charitable activities. So it will be a great opportunity for all of us to join hands with the Vedanta Society of New York and Swamiji especially in getting those things moving forward. With that, I would say we are ending today's session here. I will request Mrs. Kukudas to kindly recite the Shanti Mantra before we end the session.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद स्वामी जी, आपन को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। पुन थरे आपन सहित देखा मार्च मासरे, ताले आमे आज एठी रखिबा हमर सभा को। ओम सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिना, सर्वे शान्तो निरामया, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम।